Good morning. We'll begin the meeting of the Housing and Community Development Committee. First order of business will be to establish a quorum. Madam Secretary.
Torres.
Here.
Atkins. Bradford. Cedillo. Hueso.
Here.
Jeffries.
Here.
Miller. We have a quorum. No.
Okay, a quorum has been established, and we will begin with our first bill. Senator Wolk, Senate Bill 244.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good morning. I would like to begin by accepting the suggested amendments as author's amendments on page 6 of the analysis. Excuse me, I have a sore throat. In California, there exist hundreds of disadvantaged, unincorporated communities inside cities and out, home to an estimated 1 million people that lack basic necessities such as clean drinking water, adequate sewage disposal, and other critical infrastructure. The first step is to make certain that cities and counties begin planning for these disadvantaged and poorest communities in their next general plan update. This is a planning bill, and it is the first step toward remedying that situation. The bill requires LAFCOs in the next revision of their 5-year municipal service review to identify disadvantaged communities and examine the water, sewage, and fire protection deficiencies within these communities. We have reached an agreement with most of the local government opponents. I have with me, and we will continue to work with the others. I have with me Brian Augusta with the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation to testify in support. Thank you, and I ask you for your aye vote. And thank the Chair for our conversation and suggestions. Thank you.
Mr. Augusta.
Good morning, members. Brian Augusta on behalf of California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. This bill helps to address a long-standing problem in California, the problem of disadvantaged unincorporated communities, which are sometimes have been referred to as sort of forgotten communities which have been left out of planning decisions historically, and the result has been a significant set of deficiencies in important and vital infrastructure, most notably safe drinking water and access to sanitary sewer systems. And the result in many communities, as you'll hear from a couple of folks who are residents of these communities, is a serious public health problem. A lack of sanitary sewer service, overflowing septic systems, access to well water that is contaminated, resulting in folks essentially having to pay for bottled water to have safe drinking water for their families. We are pleased that after a number of years of working on this issue, we've been able to resolve our differences with the majority of local government and regional government representatives. We think this is a small step forward in getting some important planning done to help begin to address the problems in these communities. We know it's not a silver bullet. We know it's going to take everyone working together to make these plans and to translate into a reality for the folks who live in these communities. But we do think the first step is to develop a plan, and that's what this bill would help do. And for that reason, we would urge an aye vote.
Okay, do you have another witness?
Mi nombre es Juventino González.
My name is Juventino González.
Vengo de la comunidad de Linares, municipio Ribeldel.
I come from the Linares community in Fresno County.
La propuesta que yo vengo a pedir para mi comunidad es porque tenemos una necesidad demasiado grande, porque no tenemos drenaje, no tenemos banqueta, no tenemos luz eléctrica, no tenemos agua buena para tomar.
The reason why I'm here is because we have a huge necessity in our community. We don't have sewage system, we don't have lighting, we don't have sidewalks, we don't have anything.
Ya completé 40 años de vivir allí y nunca he mirado ningún servicio de esos. Gracias, se los agradezco por escucharme.
I've been living in this community for 40 years. I've never seen any services provided to this community. Thank you.
Next witness.
Good morning. My name is Rosalba Lopez, and I'm here from the South United Neighbors community of Parkland in Modesto. And I'm here to ask you to approve this bill. Because we need the services the city has to offer, and we need sewers instead of septic tanks. We've been struggling for a very long time now. And we don't need contaminated water. And our septic tanks overflow. Our yards could be useful for anything else but that. And we need for this law to pass, please, this bill. We are all strongly, supporting this bill, and we would want for this, to pass.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair, I think we have a photo of the land use map of Modesto for those who want to see a graphic representation of
All
what
the
this is.
members have a copy
Thank you.
of this presentation. Just want to make sure.
Good morning. My name is Shioni Flegel. I'm here on behalf of PolicyLink, and we support this legislation and ask for your aye vote.
Good morning, Dr. Patricia Jones, Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, Human Rights Organization, and we're hoping you'll vote in support of this bill to address this historic neglect.
Good morning, Ana Quiros on behalf of the Latino Coalition for a Healthy California, and we're in support of this bill, and we hope you will as well.
Julie Snyder with Housing California in support. Thank you.
Reverend Lindy Ramsden, representing the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministry Action Network. We're one of the co-sponsors. We hope you support this bill, and we have 1,103 letters from around the state also supporting this bill and the Human Right to Water package. So I guess I could give this to him.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jose Franco, and we approve this bill.
Thank you.
Vern Gehring on behalf of Food and Water Watch, a national consumer and community interest organization in support of the bill.
Mi nombre es Isabel Solorio, vengo de la Comunidad Unida por Linares. Queremos que apoyen este bill porque es necesario para nuestra comunidad, para mejorar.
My name is Isabel Osorio. I come from the United Community of Linares, and we're here in support of this bill because it's very essential for the development of our community.
Thank you.
Muy buenos días, señoras y señores. Mi nombre es Ernestina Castillón y vengo aquí a pedirles que por favor nos apoyen en el bill que estamos tratando de que nos ayuden a pasar. Gracias.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ernestina Castillón, and we're here to ask you to support this bill.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Margarito Franco. Vengo de la comunidad de Modesto para que nos apoyen este bill que queremos que pase.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Margarito Franco, and we're here to ask you to support this bill. We're here in favor of this bill. I'm coming from the Modesto community.
Mi nombre es Alberto Sánchez. Vengo apoyando la comunidad de Linares, Condado de Fresno.
My name is Gilberto Sanchez, and I'm coming from the Linares community in Fresno County, and we're here to support this bill.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Susana Franco y venimos a pedir apoyo para nuestra comunidad de Modesto, California. Gracias.
Susana Franco.
Susana Franco.
My name is Susana Franco, and we're here to ask for your support on this bill, and I'm from the Parkland community, Modesto.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Eulalia Carvajal, vengo de Linares, Condado de Fresno. A ver si nos hacen favor de ayudarnos en esta propuesta.
My name is Eulalia Carvajal, and we're here to support this bill, and we're asking for your support as well.
Hi, my name is Linda Williams, and I'm from the Matheny Tract Committee in Tulare County, and it's very important to support this bill as we get to have the stench of the Tulare Sewer Farm, but not the use of it. Thank you.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Ana María Smith y vengo a apoyar esta proposición porque sé que nos va a ayudar a nuestra comunidad.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ana Maria Smith, and I'm here to support this bill because I know it's going to benefit our community. And I'm from Matheny Tract.
Hi, my name is Sharon Leva, and I'm from the Linares community, and I just want you to approve the law.
Hello, good morning. My name is Maria Sofia Corona. I work with California Rural Legal Assistance as a community worker with several island and fringe communities that are affected by the detrimental growth of cities around them and without the benefits of services. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anit Picard. I, too, work for California Rural Legal Assistance, and we have the pleasure of working with several of these communities that are facing these great issues. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Walter Ramirez from the Sierra Lake Foundation, and I'm here to support this bill. Just let me tell you that these communities have been struggling for these issues for a long time. The majority are farm workers, community of colors from low-income communities, low-income backgrounds. So we ask you to support this bill as well. Thank you.
Debbie Davis, Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, in support of the bill.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bill Chiat with the California Association of Local Agency Formation Commissions. I want to thank the Senator and the sponsors for working with us. We had a list of concerns regarding the LAFCO portions of this bill, and we believe we resolved all of those in a way that will make this a workable piece of legislation. We recognize, as you've seen in several letters from my members, that this does create an unfunded mandate for LAFCOs. However, we also recognize that this is an important responsibility that LAFCOs have at looking at municipal service delivery and something that we should be doing on your behalf. So thank you very much.
Kirsten Kolpitke with the League of California Cities in opposition to the bill. The League is concerned about the needs of disadvantaged communities, which is why we've submitted amendments that would address both our concerns and those of ACWA. And we believe that would also achieve the goal of the author's office, which is to provide planning for these communities in disadvantaged areas. And at the same time, the amendments that we've provided also address one of our chief concerns, which is the cost of this bill. And should the amendments be taken, we would be able to remove our opposition, be neutral on the bill. Thank you.
Cindy Tuck with the Association of California Water Agencies. We have an opposed and a less amended position on the bill. We agree with the intent of the bill, and that's why we've offered amendments to it, and I would just second the comments of the League.
Any other witnesses in opposition?
Ed Behrens on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in opposition to the bill for many of the reasons already articulated.
Any other witnesses in opposition? Questions from the members? Mr. Jeffries?
Actually, I have a question for the LAFCO representative.
Me too.
You implied that you've kind of worked things through here. I'm curious on one aspect of this, which requires if someone is proposing to annex some land into a city and they're adjacent to a disadvantaged community, that they must file an application for the disadvantaged community. What if the disadvantaged community doesn't want to be annexed into the city?
Thank you for the question. And we worked on the language in here with that very question in mind. And so these would be treated by LAFCO as two separate applications. So should the disadvantaged community, which we believe in many cases this is the case, not want to be annexed in, either through protest or they voted out, it doesn't affect the other annexation application. So two completely separate applications. What the law says is they just both have to be filed at the same time.
And I've served on LAFCO for 5 or 6 years, and we've had in my county a number of unincorporated communities that did not want to annex into cities, despite no sidewalks, street lights, curbs. They moved to a rural area and they want to keep it that way. They believe annexing into a city is not going to suit their lifestyle. Who pays for the application and the processing for the disadvantaged communities application?
The application would be funded by whoever the applicant is. So if it's the city, it would be the city. If it's a developer, it would be the developer. It's whoever's, or it could be the county even. It's whoever applies.
How will the city or the county or the developer recover their fees associated with applying for someone who doesn't want to annex? Or even if they wanted to, how will they recover that?
Correct. Our experience varies a little from county to county, but in many cases, a city will work out a developer agreement with a potential developer that wants to annex into the city, and as part of that agreement, they would agree to fund the cost of the second annexation application. We believe in many of these cases, this will be for undeveloped land that is being proposed for some kind of development and needs to go to LAFCO to be annexed into the city in order to provide services, so that there would be somebody behind the city on that application.
Yeah, okay, I'm not sure I agree with all that, but I understand. All right, thank you.
And a lot of my questions have been answered, but I'm going to go a little bit further and push you a little bit further. I agree with the issues that have been stated here. I think it's shameful that some of these communities have been, or these residents have been forced to live under such conditions and have literally been ignored by the counties that they're in. But when you say that this bill would create an unfounded mandate, you created that. You created those problems. LAFCO created those problems. So how dare you try to walk away from an issue that you created?
Well, Madam Chair, maybe in some cases that's correct. However, most of these communities predate LAFCO.
In the 80s? These 80s? 80s? Was it 1980s when some of these issues came up?
LAFCO's what's that?
Okay, but you still hold the responsibility of looking at the plan amendments that have been given to you and looking at the issues around these communities. So even though they're predated, the fact that you were created after these communities, were left in an island to their own, that still doesn't negate your responsibility to care after them, to ensure that someone is reviewing the process of infrastructure update.
Madam Chair, we would, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, Madam Chair, you're absolutely correct, and not every LAFCO is like every other LAFCO. There's a great deal of variety, as there are among cities and among counties, and the point of the bill is that, given this history, some of it shameful, some of it inappropriate, but we will all agree, not good planning. The intent of the LAFCO law was to create orderly growth and planning. And as part of that mandate, over time, LAFCOs consider, and you and I have served, and others I'm sure have served, it is to rectify that. And the first step in doing that is by making certain that general plans and municipal service plans include those islands. Otherwise, you'll never get to the notion of orderly growth and good planning. So you are absolutely right. These were not necessary creations.
To the counties is that, while I would not be voting in support because of the issue of having the cities foot the bill for the county's neglect. And if the cities should, be mandated to expand their general plan update to include these communities, and someone should be looking at these communities, but the cities should receive some type of revenue from the counties for doing the work that they should have been doing. Those are my reasons. I do believe that while this may be the first step, we're still 10, 15 years away from bringing real solution to this problem, unless the counties who are responsible for these communities step up and do what's right by these residents. And it's unfortunate that we have come this far. This is the third time that this bill has been introduced, and yet they still fail to do what is right by these residents. So congratulations. I know you have worked very, very hard on this issue. Are there any other questions from the members?
Other than just, I'd like to move the bill, Madam Chair.
Move the bill? Second. Okay, the bill has been moved in second. Mr. Miller, you have a question?
I apologize for coming in late after your comments, but I just want to make sure I clarify a thought in my head because I missed some of the early testimony, and I apologize, Senator. When I was on council, we spent over $1 million updating our general plan a few years back, and we not only had pockets along the borders of the city and the county that we provided water, sewer, police, fire, protection. We had joint agreements with the county in those areas, and Mr. Jeffries is correct. They want the services, but they don't. When it comes down to making that vote to actually be annexed in the city, that's where they'll draw the line in the sand and say, we're not ready to go there. We also dealt with pockets in the city, islands in the city, and so I guess my question is, we as a city had to evaluate and analyze the financial burdens and commitments made to those as part of our and land use as part of our update to our general plan and our sphere of influence. I guess my question is the need for the bill because, and yes, it cost us some money to do it, but we had a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of the city to make sure that we analyzed where all the taxpayer dollars were going. So I just looked at it as part of the cost of doing business. I guess my question is what is prompting the bill, and are there abuses that need to be corrected that are not being addressed? And is my situation just so different than what's going on up and down the state that would be the need? I want to support the bill, but I'm struggling with how to get there. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it does.
Assemblymember, it makes quite good sense. What you did was the responsible and appropriate thing to do when you are in the responsible position of doing good land use, orderly growth, and good planning. I can give you lists of communities who ignore islands in their center, whether they're cities or counties, whether they're adjacent. They pretend I won't ascribe motive. They just don't acknowledge the way your responsible body did, that you must plan for these areas. It doesn't mean that, one, they must annex or will annex or agree to annex, or that that's the appropriate solution. But without the beginning of that kind of municipal service analysis that you did with LAFCO and the update of your general plan, they lack the ability to go for grants if they want to improve their community. They just don't have standing. They're invisible. And as we've seen from the testimony, they're often extremely disadvantaged. But I represent an area like yours. There are adjacent communities that want the services, aren't willing to pay for them, and do not want to annex. Nonetheless, they're in the general plan. So when the issue of sewage and water treatment come up, they have an option. They can apply for grants. They can do other ways of getting the appropriate services, or they work with the city adjacent or with the county. But if they're not in the planning documents, they're not real. They don't have a reality. And you did the right thing, and there are communities up and down the valley and up and down this state, including in my area, that just don't have a reality to them. We must incorporate the planning, them in planning.
Madam Chair, just one quick follow. I mean, doesn't existing law allow? I'm struggling with mandating something that should be going on. Does existing law require? I mean, if there is a financial, I don't want to say burden, but if there's a financial arrangement between the city, the county, and the disadvantaged community, I mean, isn't there current law that requires them to evaluate that in this process? So I'm struggling with mandating something that we should automatically be happening.
Sure.
I'm willing to do it because we need to do it, but
the authors invited me to answer your question, Mr. Miller. I would say right now, no. I think what your city did is the right thing to do, and it's permissible, but not every city and county is necessarily looking at these communities in that way. And I think what our bill does on the general plan piece is establish some more uniformity so that everyone does look at it. At the LAFCO level, there is the MSR review is supposed to look at this, and really what we're doing on that piece is just focusing more carefully, sort of focusing each LAFCO's attention on this particular need. Again, they could be doing that now, and they probably should be. That's why we've worked closely with Mr. Chiat, because we think this is what LAFCO is already required or should be doing, and this just puts a better focus on it. Now, on the question of extension of services versus annexation, if the community is contiguous, we think our bill will help prompt some focus on, could we just extend services even if the community does not want to be annexed? But if, as long as they're contiguous to a city, we could look at extension of services if the money is there. So that, I think, is one thing that will...
Would it mandate contiguous service? Is there anything in the bill that would mandate a service?
No, not the extension of services. This is just a planning document.
Designed to increase planning.
Mr. Jeffries?
No, I apologize because I came in late, but my sense is that this is strictly...
Mr. Cedillo, I'm sorry, I didn't see that you raised your hand to ask a question. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry?
I didn't know that you had raised your hand to ask a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Basically, we're trying to construct baseline information. This is basically all that we're doing, right? This is not unlike the SB2 I wrote that needed us to develop a baseline information of homeless people, prepare it for the 10-year plan, then positions us using data to drive the planning and prepare all the communities that share boundaries to construct plans, proposals, and pursue policies, pursue strategies that serve the entirety of the region and not just these communities. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is a planning bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. I don't have real heartburn over the bill, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to figure out some of the problems. And I guess my last remaining concern is the issue going back to the adjacent landowner of 12 acres or more that wants to annex, having to pay for someone else's annexation. I don't know that 12 acres is enough for, in some areas, you have to do 5-acre minimums for homes. That's going to be a pretty expensive burden for them to pay for someone else's annexation proposal. Having said that, my real point is, what if they'd already had an annexation proposal that was done within the last 3 or 4 years, and now and it was voted down, it was denied, it didn't move forward. Now this 12-acre landowner is going to have to pay for it again, even though the community has already rejected that. Why should they go through this process if it's already been rejected within the last couple of years? Is there a provision that addresses that?
Madam Chair, Mr. Jeffries, we put some specific language in there that allowed commission discretion on that acreage, because it really, as you pointed out, it varies so much from around the state. Each county is different. So a commission could determine that it should be 50 acres or it should be 15 acres, depending on, as you said, the general planning requirements and so forth. So I think we gave that option to the commission so that that kind of situation would not exist, that we recognize there may be an adjacent landowner that happens to have 12 or 15 acres and a failing septic tank and wants to annex into the city, and there's no reason that person should be responsible for the disadvantage on unincorporated.
And how do they deal with if there was an annexation proposal last year that was rejected by the community? Do they have to process another one again? Are they mandated to then process it, even though the community recently rejected it? Because that is happening in our county, where we do all of these studies. We do everything this bill is requiring, but we have communities that refuse to annex in.
We didn't. I don't believe we've addressed that. We're willing to take a look at that. You raised a question that we hadn't thought of.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Be glad to take a look at that.
Yeah, no.
It is an issue that was raised yesterday, and Senator Wolf has committed to looking at it at least. We have a motion and a second to approve as amended to appropriations. Madam Secretary? I'm sorry, did you want to close?
I just want to thank you for the discussion and for raising some other issues that we will look at, and we continue to work with the opposition. And thank you for, I ask you for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Torres? Atkins? Atkins, aye. Bradford? Bradford, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Hueso? Waisel, aye. Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Miller? Miller, aye. The vote is 6-0.
6-0. Your bill is out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Assemblymember Atkins, do you care to take over? I'm going to present the next bill for Senator Lowenthal. I'm a principal co-author on that. $450, yes. No, he has a committee hearing, and I am principal co-author on this bill. I apologize for the last-minute change.
Okay, so we are going to SB 450, and I'm going to ask people as they're leaving the room if they could maybe keep their voices down a bit. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Torres.
If you like, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. As you recall, the Senate Transportation and our committee held a hearing in February on the subject of redevelopment and affordable housing finance. At that hearing, there was a broad consensus on the need to reform how redevelopment agencies spend their housing funds. While the ultimate fate of redevelopment agencies as a whole is still unsettled, the fact that even under the recently passed bills, many, if not most, redevelopment agencies will remain in business and continue setting aside 20% of their tax increment for affordable housing. Senate Bill 450 represents a comprehensive set of reforms for how agencies spend their low and moderate income housing L&M funds. It has numerous provisions detailed in the analysis, but I will highlight the 4 key components of the bill. The first component on the bill establishes a hard 20% cap on planning and administration expenditures with a subcap of 10% for general administration, supervision, and overhead. The bill requires an agency to begin developing land purchase with L&M funds within 5 years and begin construction within 10 years or reimburse the L&M fund with a 50% penalty. HCD can grant a one-time extension of up to 5 years for delays beyond the agency's control. The bill requires agencies to spend 75% of their L&M funds for the production of affordable housing with sub-targets for extremely low, very low, and low-income housing. And the bill increases oversight and accountability by using a small portion of L&M funds to support an HCD audit program, allowing the controller to conduct quality control reviews of the independent auditors hired by the agencies, clarifying that a failure to meet a housing obligation is an ongoing violation until corrected, and establishing remedies for noncompliance. I would like to thank the CRA publicly for the constructive attitude that it took towards this bill, and CRA supported the bill in concept from the very beginning and deputized some of its best housing producers to meet with the sponsors and staff over a period of, I would say, almost a year. Thank you again for that. The bill before you today represents an agreement between the sponsors and CRA, and I am proud to have CRA join the bill's numerous supporters. I am a principal co-author representing Senator Lowenthal here today.
Speakers? I think we're going to go to people in support and then come back to questions. Those in support?
Christine Minahan, Western Center on Law and Poverty. I'm one of the co-sponsors, and the Assemblywoman Torres has covered the key points that we have worked on for nearly that year. I would simply raise a couple of them. Western Center has worked for quite a number of years to include the extremely low income and the very low income for development through the L&M fund. Extremely low income, very low income, each will finally be able to have a benchmark, a requirement of 25% of the 75% that the Assemblywoman was describing. Secondly, there is a limitation on planning and admin. The 20% cap was honed in on. It was specifically enumerated, and now we have 20% instead of the very high percentages that we've seen in the past. That will ensure that more money will be deposited for the actual construction of housing.
Thank you very much. Next.
Yes, Dave O'Toole representing the State Controller and another sponsor of the measure. As you've heard, SB 450 allows the Controller to conduct quality control reviews of independent audits by independent auditors, and if unprofessional conduct is identified, refer them to the Board of Accountancy. We have in recent years uncovered several instances where the misuse of redevelopment funds and L&M funds in particular should have been uncovered by the independent auditors. In the city of Bell, we discovered that funds were being used, L&M funds were being used to pay for things like cell phones and landscaping, things that the independent auditors should have caught. And these audit findings point to the need for better oversight, and we think this bill will help us achieve that. And thank you for your attention to the bill.
Thank you. Next in support.
Julie Snyder with Housing California and Strong Support. We especially appreciate the provisions that will ensure more money is used for actual housing production for people at the lowest end of the income spectrum, where the housing market, the private housing market, simply does not produce anything remotely affordable. So thank you very much.
Okay, in support.
Hugh Bauer on behalf of the California Redevelopment Association. We are in support of SB 450. The Redevelopment Association has always sought to assure that funds allocated to the low and moderate income housing fund are distributed and expended fairly. After several hours of meetings with the Senate Housing Committee staff and sponsors, we believe we've negotiated a reasonable, well-crafted, and pragmatic bill, and we therefore stand in support.
Thank you very much.
Ed Behrens on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in support of the bill.
Keith Dunn for the California Housing Consortium in strong support of this important bill. Thank you.
Michael Lane, Nonprofit Housing Association, Northern California, in strong support.
Brian Augusta with the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, pleased to be a co-sponsor of the measure.
Roxanne Miller representing the Mayor, City Council, City of San Jose. We are in support of this legislation. Thank you.
Graham Brownstein representing Transform in support. Thanks so much.
Good morning. My name is Eva Nunez. In supporting of housing, I'm with an agency known as TLCS Housing, so we're helping lower income senior citizens with housing. If it supports us, we're very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Gross on behalf of the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. You're aware that there are provisions in this bill regarding audits and the role of accountants. We have been working with the Comptroller's Office on AB 229, which I understand has been pulled. We reached agreement on language in that bill, and conforming changes do need to be made in 450. And so I've been working with Mr. O'Toole, and we are hopeful that that does occur. But if they don't, then we're going to have further conversations, because the provisions in the bill now with respect to the role of the Board of Accountancy and the penalties that would be imposed on certified public accountants with respect to audits are not only inconsistent with what was put in 229, but the Board of Accountancy has issues with them as well. But I think we are working effectively with the Comptroller, and I am hoping that those are corrected. Thank you.
So qualified support at this point.
Well, we probably wouldn't even be here but for that issue. So
thank you very much. Those in opposition to the bill? Anyone in opposition? Okay, I have Mr. Waso on the queue for questions, and then Mr. Jeffries.
First of all, I'm generally very supportive of the purpose of the bill. I think the bill gets to some areas where there has been abuse in the past. But my concern is that this is a very prescriptive law, and if you apply it to certain project areas, it just does not work. And this is my concern, and I'm going to share with you some of my concerns with my experience working in a redevelopment area in a truly blighted areas. Because I mean, there's redevelopment areas are grandfathered in before there were blight conditions required to establish them, and often you see redevelopment in wealthy neighborhoods, and there's an enormous amount of obstructionism and opposition to introducing affordable housing in those neighborhoods. So I can see how this bill would help in those areas. However, if you're in truly blighted neighborhoods where you have very low socioeconomics, usually those neighborhoods are very willing to have affordable housing be built in their neighborhood. They're very supportive. In my experience working in these neighborhoods, most of the funds of those areas have been allocated for affordable housing type projects with very, very strong community support. So this bill is going to be very punitive to those areas that are doing an excellent job of actually spending their money in affordable housing, and in those areas that have very low funds. Generally, very blighted areas in low-income neighborhoods see very short increases in tax increment. You don't see big gains. And I'm going to give you an example of Barrio Logan that was established in my district, established in 1989. It has taken over 20 years to develop a tax increment that's somewhere in the vicinity of about $600,000 right now. So their affordable housing set aside is probably under $130,000 a year, and with $130,000, probably the best thing you can do in an area that's predominantly rental, there's very little home ownership, is target those units that are not maintained properly by the owners, and that's why a code compliance program has been very instrumental. It's a non-traditional code compliance program. It's one that targets very dilapidated units that are substandard and being rented. This bill eliminates the ability to use a very small fund of money from affordable housing to make housing more livable in these areas that don't have enough of a money to build affordable housing. So you eliminate a program that's been very successful in the past, and it's very punitive to those areas that don't have enough money to build affordable housing. If you allow 20% to be used for staff, for costs generally associated with staff costs, not necessarily for the production of affordable housing. I mean, there are loopholes in this that will allow 20% of the funds to be used for staff costs. If you have a $20 million fund for affordable housing, well, that's an enormous amount of money for non-affordable housing purpose. But if you have $100,000, it's not enough money to comply with the requirements of this law. So again, it's very punitive to low-income areas, and it allows for waste and abuse in areas that have a lot of money. I was hoping that maybe we can tighten up some of the provisions of this so we can get a bill that accomplishes kind of the intent of what you're trying to create. I don't know that you can, because this is Senator Lowenthal's bill, I don't know if you have the discretion to make some of those amendments.
Well, I don't have the discretion to make those amendments. Like I said, this has been a work in progress for a little over a year. But I would like to make some comments in response to your concerns, Assembly Member. I absolutely respect what you have just said, and I know that you're very, very committed to ensuring that we maximize these funds and to actually build affordable housing and provide much better infrastructure and living conditions for our residents. The 20% cap that you talked about is the cap on planning and administrative expenditures. Agencies can still use up to 80% of the funds for code enforcement as a blight eliminating strategy. This bill focuses on production. In addition to that 80%, cities can also use CDBG monies for a code enforcement program. in Pomona, where I was mayor, we utilized those funds to maximize the code enforcement problems that we had and try to improve our communities. So if that would answer your question, 80% of this money can be used for that.
You're saying that the affordable housing set aside can't be used for code enforcement, but the 80% can?
80%. 80%.
Where does it state that in the...
Go ahead, please.
Mark Stivers on behalf of Senator Lowenthal.
And I'm looking at the...
The bill is focused exclusively on the 20% funds. It doesn't really touch on any of the laws relating to the 80% economic development funds. But there is nothing in the community redevelopment law with respect to the 80% funds that would prohibit an agency from spending it on code enforcement. And so that's been sort of our take, is that while code enforcement is a good activity, it's more appropriate to be on the 80% side of the redevelopment ledger than on the 20% side, which is we're trying to focus on the production of.
And why don't we move the reporting obligation costs over to the 80% as well on this?
I think we could be open to that. I would imagine CRA might have some objections to that, but these are reporting costs that are related solely to the housing functions of the agency, and it seemed appropriate that those would be paid for with housing funds.
Would you be open to giving HCD some discretion if there's a process to waive certain areas that have consistently over the years met their affordable housing requirements, that have spent their money appropriately, and that have very, very small funds available, maybe exempting them from these reporting requirements simply because they don't have enough funds to comply with these reporting requirements?
There is a provision that says that the 20% cap on planning and admin does not apply during the first 5 years of a project area for that reason.
They have 10 years, I understand, but in 10 years in Barrio Logan, using it as an example, they never really generated enough
we could look at some
to warrant this level of scrutiny.
We could look at some exemptions for very small agencies. I think that the idea is that they do have funds coming in, and we'd like to know what they're doing with those funds. I think that transparency is fairly important, but to the extent that the reporting requirements may be particularly
and I agree with that. We could still we could give HCD the discretion to apply some of the reporting requirements that I think they can do with the staff that they do have, but usually it's not they don't have enough money even to staff a position. So oftentimes this is going to require the work of a project manager, and some of these project areas can't afford that.
Moving forward, we can certainly continue to look at those very small agencies that do that. For today, I don't want to speak on behalf of Senator Lowenthal and agree to any amendments here.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Jeffries, and then Mr. Cedillo.
Yeah, mine's going to be a little bit more 30,000 foot, and it's more directed towards the Redevelopment Association. Given the action that has been taken by the legislature, and I assume the governor's going to sign the bills related to RDAs, given those actions and what's proposed here today, I mean, I have city council members asking, well, I don't know that our RDA is going to survive. How does all of this fit into the actions that have been taken with regards to RDAs that are out there today? From a 30,000 foot, I don't need a dictionary report, just a general oversight.
Can I answer it from a 60,000 foot level? I mean, that's an open-ended question, and we're not sure. I'll say that, as I said in my opening comments, we are committed to doing the right thing by affordable housing. We just don't know. We are optimistic that redevelopment will continue, whether it be by litigation or other alternatives, but for the time being, we are in support of the policy reforms that were contained in SB 450.
My understanding is that for RDAs to continue, they're going to have to agree to change their revenue stream and surrender some of that, while at the same time, this bill and other pre-existing conditions require a certain amount of revenue be dedicated, but that revenue may not be there. Am I assessing?
No, you're absolutely correct. If the as the two trailer bills are signed, if they continue to be the law, there will be a number of agencies, and CRA is still trying to gather that data, which agencies will survive and which won't, but there are a number of agencies that will be extinguished and to which this SB 450 will be moot.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Cedillo.
I'm happy to move the bill, but before that I wanted to note, and it just seems to me, knowing the author and the preparation, that the unintended consequences that Mr. Wiesel pointed out, that there should be some way to accommodate them. I don't think that those were the intentions, that we punish good actors, and that I think it wasn't just the 20%, but I think Mr. Wiesel was talking about the entirety of the resources that were developed. The other 80% combined were inadequate, but that had some value when they were used for the purposes of rehab. And so I think that we're moving in a direction that we can craft some amendments and some accommodations if we can make clear that that's the spirit of the action of the board before we move the bill. Okay. Happy to move the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second, and I will just quickly conclude as one of the authors. I think a lot of work has gone into this, and you know, some of us, even more so with Mr. Wiesel, have the experience of really working on the ground in the weeds to try to make these projects happen. And from the 60,000 foot level, we're not sure where this goes, but a lot of work has been put into really getting us to a place with agreement from multiple parties to try to do the best we can to keep affordable housing moving, to make sure that the money doesn't sit there, that excess surplus land, how that is scored or how it's logged, that we do the best to keep affordable housing actually moving and not letting money sit there where they should be spending it, not where they're trying to get enough in order to do a good project. So there are probably other things that need to be done going forward. I think these are major steps forward. I, of course, would want to look at the number of years when you buy a parcel and sit on it, and then if you buy an adjacent parcel that's in there. We got a letter from Affirmed Housing, one of our best affordable housing developers, and their goal is to build, and that seems to make the timeline longer. But in the spirit of today and moving forward with the parties that have come to the table, I certainly support this too, and thank you, Madam Chair, for presenting this today. So we have a motion and a second, and it is due pass. With that, to appropriations, due pass to appropriations. Call the roll. I'm sorry, not. Mr. Stivers.
There are some technical amendments listed in the analysis, and we will be accepting those. We're going to combine them with as we work on these other amendments with Mr. Wiesel and other parties that have had some smaller suggestions.
Make sure we cover all those issues.
We're just trying to combine it into one set rather than do a couple.
Now you said you would work with us on amendments. Is that?
I am happy to contact your staff today and start working on if there are ways that we could address your concern. I don't know exactly how we would do that yet, so I can't commit on behalf of Senator Lowenthal, but we will make every effort to try and address your concern.
Okay.
There are currently technical amendments on the bill, and those are what we are accepting here today.
Actually, I think what we would like to do is just we will agree to take those, but we're not going to actually amend the bill today. We're just going to combine those
because we want to see them.
Yes.
We want to see all of the amendments in print, so you still have time to be working with Mr. Stivers and staff on other things. But the technical amendments will be all put together before appropriation.
Well, I had planned to stay off this bill, but if you agree to work with us on maybe addressing some of these areas,
we will make every effort.
I'll support it today.
Thank you very much. Okay, call the roll.
Atkins?
Aye.
Atkins, aye. Bradford?
Aye.
Bradford, aye. Cedillo? Aye. Cedillo, aye. Wiesel? Aye. Wiesel, aye. Jeffries? Aye. Jeffries, aye. Miller? Miller, aye. Torres?
Aye.
Torres, aye. Vote is 7.
Thank you. That bill is out, and we will move on to the next item. Madam Chair, I have to present a bill, so
okay.
Can I turn it back over to you?
I have to present the next item.
Madam Chair, your recommendation for who will chair?
How about you, Mr. Jeffries?
Mr. Jeffries, yes. I think Mr. Jeffries would like to do it.
Sorry, I was looking at you. I don't know why, because you're smiling at me.
Madam Chair, we're going to defer to Mr. Wayso.
This is an easy one for you. And
Order, new sheriffs in town. So,
okay.
Ms. Torres, you'll be presenting on item 4, SCR 6.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm happy to move the bill.
And on
Do we have
behalf,
any testimony in support of the bill? Any in opposition? So, you want to make some closing comments?
on behalf of Senator Lowenthal, I thank you very much for your consideration and respectfully request your support.
Okay, please call the roll.
I just like to make a comment if all possible. I want to commend the senator for moving forward in this bill because as a individual who sits on the California Cable Commission or Council, a newly formed commission about 3 months ago with PUC President Mr. Peavy and Senator Padilla and various other individuals from the industry, it is vital that we find a way to connect low-income communities to the internet, and it's more so than just having the access, but it connects them to job opportunities, educational opportunities, and the affordability of this is critical in these underserved and lower-income communities. So I just support this, and I would hope that as this bill moves forward, he would work with the council as well to make sure that some of those resources that are being discussed are included to help facilitate his goals and objectives.
Thank you for my presentation.
Thank you for your comments. Please call the roll.
Wayso?
Aye.
Wayso, aye. Atkins? Bradford? Bradford, aye. Cedillo? Cedillo, aye. Jeffries? Jeffries? No. Miller? Aye. Miller, aye. Torres? Aye. Torres, aye. The vote is 5 to 1.
5 to 1, and we'll wait for the chair to come back to them.
Thank you. We will now move to the consent calendar. The item number 3, Senate Bill 562, Madam Chair. The bill has been moved and second. Madam Secretary?
It's due pass on consent to appropriations. Torres? Aye. Torres, aye. Atkins? Bradford? Aye. Bradford, aye. Cedillo? Aye. Cedillo, aye. Wayso? Aye. Wayso, aye. Jeffries? Aye. Jeffries, aye. Miller? Aye. Miller, aye. The vote is 6 to 0.
6 to 0. That bill is out, and this concludes our meeting of the Housing and Community Development. Thank you, members, for being here.